exactly do you market to a very niche audience? I have a viewer who wrote in. They work for a very specific kind of library and they wanted some help with marketing advice. And I think this advice actually applies to everyone working in library marketing. So we're going to get into niche audiences in this episode of the Library Marketing Show. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Hursh. I run a blog called superlibrarymarketing.com. Head on over there. I'm looking for questions for future episodes. If you have something on your mind and you'd like me to try to research and address it, I'm happy to do that. Just click on the Library Marketing Show tab to contact me. Of course, you can always nominate a library doing something fun or interesting in marketing for our Kudos Award there too. We are going to start today's episode with Kudos, which is going to the Westlake Porter Public Library. They had an article in their local paper that's basically a profile of their new young adult librarian. I think this is a really fantastic idea. They provided some photos. It's basically a write-up of who this person is, what her background is, and how she plans to help the community. It's a great way to introduce the staff member to a new audience and get some positive coverage for the library. Pretty brilliant. So I wanted to give a shout out. Good job, Westlake Porter Public Library. All right, let's talk about today's topic, which is how to market to niche audiences. I got this request from a viewer. I work in an academic medical library, and sometimes it's tough to find advice on marketing to our specific types of users. So they have students, faculty, staff of a medical school, staff of a public health section, and their school of nursing. They have 5 or 6 different kinds of very niche audiences. And as I was putting together this episode, it occurred to me that the tips that I was writing out are tips that apply to every kind of library that has niche audiences. The first thing to do is to do some research and write out pain points for that specific audiences. So for our viewer who wrote in, medical students probably need quick access to high yield study resources. The faculty is probably looking for help with research support. They might need help with publishing assistance or data management tools. Nurses and public health students probably need help with databases that help them learn to make those clinical decisions. I encourage you to write your niche audiences out and then write down their pain points to really help you figure out what they need from you in terms of marketing. Number 2, for the most part, most niche audiences will need content that is fast and actionable. That's just how it is in this world. I love long form content, by the way, and there is a place and time for that. But when you're talking about creating content for niche audiences, specifically if you're trying to build up support and trust in your library, let's start with that shorter, smaller, very actionable stuff to build that trust. Tip number 3, again, applies to all kinds of libraries. You want to speak the language of your target audience. For our academic medical library, their vocabulary and the language that they're used to probably comes from medical databases, textbooks, research studies, terminology. So our example librarian marketer will want to use those terms in his or her library marketing. For the rest of us, get to know your niche audience. Are they conversational? Do they like professional talk? You need to think about who they are and figure out what kind of language they might like in their marketing. Number 4, as with all library marketing, you want to reach your niche audience on the right channel where they are. Now, for our academic medical library, I know many universities and colleges don't let the library do their own email. They want them to be folded into a larger email system that the university uses. But you can ask if you could send an email to students, and in particular, if you can send an email to staff on your own to share your own resources. Social media wise, for our academic library, I'm thinking LinkedIn or maybe like institutional Yammer groups, or if they're on Discord, that might be the place where you want to share library resources. Obviously, you're going to do physical signage, as all libraries do, in places where students and staff are congregating to let them know about library resources. For academic libraries, you can ask to get your library resources embedded in places like Canvas or Blackboard or whatever learning system your institution uses. For other libraries, we're just going to look, are they reading newspapers? Are they going to the grocery store? Are they reading email? What kind of social media platforms do they use? And focus your message for that niche audience on the platforms they are interacting with most often. And those are my tips for marketing to a niche audience. I'm curious, have you done any campaigns or any marketing to a niche audience at your library? And if so, what particularly did you do to try to get that message to that right audience? I'm really curious. I know my viewers will be curious. Let me know and get a conversation started down in the comments. And that's it for today's episode, but I have lots of other videos with tips and tricks for library marketing. If you want to learn more, head to this next video and I will see you there.